How we doing, guys? We're back. Monday Night Football. Finally, it's almost over. The international break. There's not another one now for 4 months, guys. 4 months. It's gone. It's finally over. Guys, we're joined by 2 very special guests. Going to start with Mickey. How's things going, mate? Mickey Piquet from the Bielsa Bible.
I'm going well, thanks. Apart, like you say, apart from this international break, yeah, good, thanks. I mean, this international break's become so tiresome now, innit? And you're watching any other team that's not a Leeds team, and it's just boring, man. So, I mean, watching England Southgate, I didn't even watch it to the end. So
I don't watch it.
Yeah, no, it's unless Calvin's playing, it's just pointless, isn't it? I think we might have a few more. In 4 months' time, fingers crossed, we might have a couple more Leeds players in that starting 11 if they can maintain some kind of decent form. But it's so boring, isn't it? We were so spoiled. It makes you realise how special this time at this club is now, isn't it? With a manager like Bielsa at the helm who just wants to attack and play brave football.
It makes you appreciate it even more, doesn't it, Ben? I mean, it just makes you watching like international football compared to what we see week in, week out in club football. Even when I know we've lost the last couple of games, but it's still been a lot better to watch us getting beat than what it has been to watch just horrendous football.
Yeah, I mean, it's just watching us throw kitchen sink it, even at City and Liverpool. It's great to watch, and then, we rock up against Belgium, who, are a fairly decent team. And you're sitting watching 7 defensive players on the field. It is very, very dull. We're spoiled, but it's a pleasure to have a game back on Sunday against Arsenal. That's for sure.
Nice, yeah. I'll just quickly jump in, guys. If you're watching on Twitter, please smash a like and a retweet. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube as well, do the same. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. I need to remind you that this video is sponsored by Football Prizes. Their link is in the description, along with Talking Shutts and Bielsa Bibles as well. So if you don't know them already, please make sure you check them out. Always a great listen. I was actually listening to the Bielsa Bible 1 through to episode 4 on the train today, actually. So yeah, it's a great listen. Make sure you check it out. This week, no worries. You can get a Patrick Bamford signed and framed Leeds United shirt. These are going out so quick. I think they're having to put 2 on a week now for Leeds United fans. So £4.95 a ticket. A Patrick Bamford signed and framed Leeds United shirt. So the link is in the description. Make sure you check it out because it won't be around forever. I think Luke Gayling, our lass, really fancies him and bought about 4 tickets, I think. So we'll see if we win that one. But back over to you.
I was like that. I was like trying to read it. That's great, mate. That's great, is that?
Yeah, no, there you go, man. Honestly, they do some class stuff.
Is that charity as well? Is it all for charity?
Oh no, I don't think so. No.
Oh, is it not?
No. Yeah, it's a company, mate. Football Prizes.
Times are hard.
There is, for any non-Leeds fans, you can get a one-off signed Jeff Hurst shirt. There's a Wolves signed and framed shirt. Original England 1990 shirt. Jan Vertonghen signed and framed Spurs shirt. Or if you're of that persuasion, you can get one of Shrek signing a Scum shirt that's also available as well, if that tickles your fancy, Mr. Wayne Rooney. But that's all that done. Oscar?
Well, I guess, lads, as it says, as we've done before, last international break, I guess all we can do is just discuss the season so far. Obviously, since the last international break, the first game back, cash your mind back, it was 4 weeks ago now, I think it was. Leeds 0, Wolves 1, miserable, wet, cold, Monday night. I mean, it was a strange game, wasn't it? I mean, first game of 2 halves. I think me and Joe said after it. Obviously, we played really well first half. Second half, it was a bit more even. Wolves took the game. But obviously, Ben, I mean, what were your feelings on that one? Was that one? Because obviously, going into that game, bearing in mind we just drawn with Man City before going into the international break. 2 games before that. Sheffield United, Fulham, good games to win. And obviously, Liverpool, we put in a really good performance. Was that game to you a little bit of a taking us back to reality a little bit maybe that game, or was it just we were just genuinely unlucky on the day not to get anything?
I think it set the tone for what we can expect for the next run of games. That followed. We saw Wolves come and play very defensively on the counter attack. Which, if you look at the games that we're going to talk about against Leicester and against Villa as well. Even you saw a different way of other teams approaching to play Leeds United, and it was just frustrating because we were still playing this free-flowing attacking football, and it was absolutely still class to watch, but we were really coming up against these big physical teams. I mean, you look at Wolves, and you look at their back line with Bolly, with Cody, and the way that we like to play out wide and get the ball in the box. We really did struggle. It was an unfair result. That deflection, if that won't happen, and it were a 0-0 game all over, and it were a draw all day. But I think it set a precedent for the next few games, and the way especially the way Leicester beat us and the way Palace beat us. On the counter attack, there were a lot of mistakes made in those games, but there was not. You look at the game against City, for example, before that break, and it was like a game of basketball back and forth. The Wolves were looking to get it up the pitch as quick as possible, and that's where the danger is with players like Jimenez and Pedro Neto and things like that. So yeah, it was frustrating. We held us own again, but it was definitely a sign of things to come.
I mean, Mickey, there's no shame in losing to Wolves. I think a lot of teams, especially at the lower end of the table, are going to get beat by Wolves. They're one of those teams, as Ben was saying, when they get into a lead, they are so difficult to break down. That back three. And, I think you look at the game, though, I think the big thing I'd take from it is in that first half, again, as Ben was saying, it was a game of few chances. But I still thought in that first half, at times, we were playing champagne football. We were just playing with Wolves, weren't we? We were just toying with them at times. And what were your feelings on it, mate?
Well, looking at Wolves, a weird stat about Wolves is that they always come on strong in the second half, and they win a lot of games. Like they've got the most points in the second half, or something. It's ridiculous. And I think they're a top 7 team, definitely. So there's no shame in losing to Wolves whatsoever. And the goal, as Ben mentioned, was lucky, and it felt like a draw, that game. It felt like neither team did quite enough to win it. They've got some cracking players. I mean, really dangerous players, and you didn't see much of them. I thought we controlled it for most of the game. Yeah, there was that. We seem to have these little pockets in games where we have 5-10 minute spells, or rather the other team does, and they seem to get a goal, or the luck's going against us. But I think personally, we've been controlling games for 60, 70 minutes in every single game we've played. I think we've been really, really unlucky. I think luck is against us at the minute. And when I look at the underlying numbers and how we're playing, I think we'll turn it round. No shame at all in losing to Wolves. Just got a bit unlucky. And it could have gone the other way, let's be honest. It's just that little bit of... You can't even call it clinical finishing, can you? It's just a fluke goal, I think. And I was proud of the way we played. I thought it was great. And we conceded 1 goal. People are panicking now. It's panic stations. 8 goals in 2 games. And people are losing the shit. And I said it on the Bielsa Bible, the last one. Stop being a fucking pussy. That's really important. We're not doing that badly. Stop throwing the batter out. Things are going well. Believe in the overall pros. Believe in Bielsa, because we owe him that. We owe him so much, a debt that can't be repaid. Everyone keeps saying, and it actually offends me when people start doubting him. I think if we'd have all took this a year ago, that promotion out of the Championship was never inevitable. I was panicking like mad in March, thinking we weren't going to make it. That promotion wasn't inevitable. And you know what, people, we had some bad runs in the Championship. I know we're talking about the Wolves again. I'm going off on a bit of a weird cul-de-sac here, but we had some bad runs, and you've got to remember that we turned it round. And I just want people to be positive about this Leeds team now, because we deserve it. The players deserve it, and he deserves it, Bielsa, because we've been brilliant. I think we've been brilliant, and I love the way we play, and I won't change it for the world.
I mean, the biggest thing to possibly look back at that game, Joe, mate, was probably 10 minutes to go. Raul Jimenez goes sliding in on Calvin Phillips, and KP's out for that big injury. That was probably, for me, looking back at it now, that was probably the bigger thing from that game than the actual defeat itself, losing KP. I know, obviously, the Villa game came and we just absolutely, took over in that game. But do you think, when you look back at that game, in terms of the quality Wolves had on that pitch. You know, I think that's something we don't. You know, as Mickey was saying, you got Moutinho, Neves. You know, two people who are probably going to be pushing for that Portugal team. Semedo, who signed for 30 million from Barcelona at right back. You know, I mean, it's one of those things, mate. How did you see that game? Looking back,
I think the overriding thing, I think Ben touched on it, was we sometimes can run out of ideas and get it out to the wing and put it in the box. And I just felt that game in particular, when you've got Bolly, Cody, and I forget the other lad's name. I think he's just coming into the team. Kilburn, that's it.
He was man of the match, you know.
Yeah.
And that shows you how well they defended. And it's also, I'll go back to you, Joe, but it's a sign of how much domination we had, because their centre back is man of the match.
Yeah, no, you're bang on, and I think he was playing like futsal or something a couple of seasons ago, and then all of a sudden he's had this meteoric rise, and now he's playing for Wolves. But yeah, it was one of them where every time we put it into the box, it was just headed out, you know. And when you've got Cody, Bolly, etc., you know, in that box, it was always going to be a difficult game. And I think the frustrating thing, like's been touched on, it came from a fluke. I think it was Pascal Strout slipped prior to Jimenez as well, getting onto the ball. Then he came inside and look, if the deflection's not made, it's not going in, is it? You know, and that's the frustrating thing. But losing to Wolves, they'll win more games than they'll lose this season. It's not nothing to be worried about. They're a great side, and like's been said, you know, that's the style they adopt. They sit in and wait to catch teams in the second half, you know. I think they very rarely score in the first half. I might be wrong, but I think that seems to be their style of play. But listen, they're a top outfit. Just frustrating that we lost to a fluke goal. It was a 0-0 game, you know. I don't really remember us carving them open or having really any opportunities in that game, I don't think. I might be wrong. It's quite some time ago now.
I mean, I'm trying to remember like crazy.
Yeah. It's 4 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, but no. You look at gilt-edged chances that were missed, and you can't recall any.
No.
So that in itself tells a story.
But Wolves scored one goal all season in the first half. Just to quote that there. I mean, that sums it all up. And I guess, you know, moving on from that game, you know, we went to. You know, I think 3 out of the 4 games we've faced have been teams like Wolves. You know, Leicester, Palace. Yeah, they probably utilised their plan a bit better. But 4 days later, we played Aston Villa away from home. And to be fair, totally different style. They tried to go toe-to-toe with us, but they're not Liverpool, they're not Man City. And we blew them away. And look, in that first half, it was a brilliant first half, let's be honest. The first half was a little bit like that Man City game. It was a tennis match, wasn't it? It was up and down, up and down, up and down. Grealish was having little mini runs. Rodrigo was getting on the ball. And it was a shootout, wasn't it? It was whoever scores first is probably just going to run away with it. And ultimately, you know, Aiden makes that block off the line. And that's the turning point in the whole game. You know, when we just completely take control after we score. And it's an easy win at the end of the day. But Mickey, I mean, that game was just quite incredible, wasn't it? In terms of that was exactly, for me, probably one of our best performances under Bielsa. The fact we could have won by more than 3. I thought we should have won by more than 3 in that second half. Probably the best half we probably put together. I mean, it was just textbook Bielsa. Everything about that second half was what a Marcelo Bielsa team is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we could. I think I saw a tweet from one of the Villa fans. I know he said it could have been 8. And you look at that when and Harrison gets the ball at the end of the game and he shoots into the side net, and we've got 6 players breaking. It's just incredible to watch. Weirdly enough, I feel like that Villa game could have been the Palace game. I feel like we're so close to doing that in every single game. That's what it feels like to me. We're close to running away with it, and we're at our best when they open up. We are at our best when another team has a go at us, and when we score that first goal, I think other teams are in big trouble, if I'm honest. I fully expect Villa to happen again. And I fully expect us to go on a run. We were so good, and you've got to credit Bamford. I mean, that hat-trick is incredible. I mean, the last goal is terrible defending when he slots it into the corner. I don't know how. If that's your team, if that goes, everyone's talking about Bamford. slotted it in. It was an incredible finish. But if that's your team and you've got 4 centre-backs pretty much surrounding the ball and watching a player do that. But the second goal was incredible from Bamford. That kind of nonchalant strike. But he's got that. You think back to that, that Preston goal. Do you remember we were 3-0 away in Preston? Yeah. And you think back to what Bamford's got in his locker. And we've always seen it. We've always, even on his bad runs last season, and he got 16 last season, and he could have had 32, and it could have had more than 32, let's be honest. But we all know that he's bubbling under the surface with some kind of world class in him, and you can see it. But things just don't quite happen for him at times. But when they do happen for him, we've got, people are starting to stand up now and recognise Bamford has perhaps been pushing for an international place and perhaps been one of the top strikers, definitely technically one of the top strikers in world football now. Because if you're doing it in the Premier League, you're doing it at the very top. And it's been an amazing resurgence. Bamford's come back into the fight. As a kid, he was highly thought of, loaned out everywhere by Chelsea. Never quite happened for him. But you feel like now it's starting to happen. And you've got to credit Bamford because you need someone to slot it in the back of the net. And with our domination, and it's a massive cliche, I know that. But scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in football. And I feel like we dominate games a lot. We just don't have that cutting edge, sometimes creatively and at times frustratingly with someone to put it in the back of the net. And Bamford's been guilty of that himself at times. But against Aston Villa, he was the difference, really. I mean, he was the difference in terms of scoring 3 goals. I mean, the team were the difference because it was annihilation. We annihilated them. We absolutely annihilated them. Look, I've got to say as well, you forget about that Luke Ayling one off the line. Could have been a lot different. I think it was his mistake as well. And then he got back online. That's a great bit of anticipation. So that it could have been a lot different. If we go behind, you feel like a team can close up and say, go on, get out wide and put it into the box. That's fine. We'll add it out because everyone's got fantastic defenders in the Premier League. So it could have been. It all could be so different, lads. It's like playing in a Bielsa team, watching a Bielsa team, and supporting a Bielsa team. It's on a knife edge, isn't it? You feel like we could. I honestly feel like we could blow any team away. We could have done what Villa did to Liverpool. We could have done that. We could beat any team 7-2. But you see, at the same time, you feel like we could lose 4-1, 5-0. It's on a knife edge. It's fine margins, and that's what's exciting about this Leeds team.
I mean, that Fulham game, just going way back, that Fulham game at 4-1 up with half an hour to go. I know ultimately we turned into the Leeds United we know and love in that last sort of half an hour. We made a real meal out of beating probably one of the worst teams I think I've ever seen in terms of Fulham. In
the Premier League, yeah.
That could have been 6-7. If we really wanted it to be. If Fulham didn't score straight after we made it 4-1, it probably does go on to be a 6-7-1 kind of game, doesn't it? And I mean, just to say that, Mickey, as well, the third goal, you talk about the defender. I mean, it sums up where England are at as a nation, that Tyrone Mings, just taking that performance from Tyrone Mings in that game, the fact he's now one of England's first choice centre-backs, it kind of sums up their problems, doesn't it, really? But, I mean,
team
just
of centre-backs, mate. It's a team of right-backs, isn't it, half at the time?
But just to quote the stats from that game alone, Ben, mate, I mean, I've just had to Google them again now. 27 shots Leeds had in that game, 9 on target, 5 corners, 59% of the ball. I mean, it was tight in the first sort of half an hour or so, but it was total domination, wasn't it, really, overall?
Do you know what it is? It's almost like they went with a point to prove, and I couldn't tell you why. Maybe it was because of what Gabby had to say before, I'm not sure, but they played like they had a point to prove. I mean, Rodrigo really got into that game. He dominated that game. And that's when you first saw the kind of price tag in him. He absolutely run midfield, and it was an absolute joy to watch him. But having Rodrigo there, this is that record signing who's a renowned striker in the league. That's pushing Bamford to the heights that he's hitting now as well. I mean, some of the finishing is just absolutely impeccable. In his all-round play, it's just developed year on year. And it's fascinating to watch. It really, really is. I mean, he's even in the conversation for England now. We've heard Southgate mention him in press conference without even being asked about him. And I think that game really set a precedent. You know, he really started to show that clinical edge that seemed to, you know, he seemed to have found this year, really. But we went and we just completely bombarded Villa. You know, tore them apart. You know, they had the chances, like you say, Ayling clearing off the line. You saw Jack Grealish run the full length of the field and not being able to muster up anything at the end of it. But you know, they were going into that game. They were hot favourites. You know, they've been demolishing teams, including Liverpool, and they were hot favourites. And we made them look like a team of schoolboys. And that's what Leeds United can do to teams, as Mickey said. You know, we've got the quality. We're starting to see a real connection between Click and Patrick Bamford, which I really, really like as well. And it's just, you know, everything seems to have clicked, but it's almost like an anomaly for me, is that game over the 4 games we're going to talk about, because that's the game where KP were missing and we didn't miss him. We didn't seem to miss him. You know, we started striking, he would hold off after 20 minutes. And you know, but we controlled it from start to finish. Albeit, you know, we've missed Rodrigo due to a positive COVID test as well, and that could be the difference. But you know, when we brought Shackleton on in that game and pushed Click back, you know, Shackleton and Rodrigo in that centre midfield looked dangerous. They ran that game, and you know, that result, I think, put a lot of belief and a lot of confidence in Leeds fans. And you know, I think a lot of Villa fans were eating the words after that game as well. In fact, a lot of Premier League fans were eating the words after that game.
I mean, from that game, Joe, I think you saw what makes Bielsa so special. I think, you know, Ben's mentioned it there. Obviously, the decision to take Pascal Struijk off 20 minutes into the game. I think a lesser manager doesn't do that. Can't do that decision. You just can't make that decision. I mean, we've seen it before with Bielsa. I think we all remember Calvin at Swansea coming off after 15 minutes when he cost us a goal, and you know, he'd been playing brilliantly all season. He came off, then just turned into what we all know Calvin is now, kind of thing. And he just made that decision, didn't he, Bielsa, that had he not made it, it could have been a totally different game, you know. I still would say that. It could have been a totally different game in the way. I don't think Struijk was playing badly. I really don't think he was playing badly, but he was a little bit, he wanted it a bit too much, didn't he? You know, he
could have been sent off, man.
He just showed a little bit of inexperience. You know, you've got when you've got mobile midfielders like Grealish and McGinn there. He just struggled, you know, and he just, you know what Grealish is like. He absolutely sold him a dream.
He'd have been sent off.
Yeah, 100%.
I think he would have been as well.
Yeah, he was lucky to not get a second yellow a little bit later on, and I remember doing it on the stream.
I thought it was off, actually.
In
fact, he made a really good tackle, and I thought it was off because when he went for the lunge, he got the ball in the end, but I was like, oh no. And he looked a bit off the pace a little bit. But, and he made the tackle. And I was like, I don't think I'd handle another fucking 70 minutes of this. It's like knife edge stuff. And then when he came off, but Bielsa said it was tactical, and he got it right because, like you said, the energy. When we don't play Phillips, right? Who is everyone's saying we're missing Phillips, and you know, I'm not going to disagree with that. But when he doesn't play, and we have, you know, if we put Shaq and Klitsch in that midfield, the fucking energy. And it's a different type of Leeds. And I actually feel like against certain opposition, Shaq is more useful than you realise. But then again, against other opposition, he started the next game and it was hauled off.
He went missing, didn't he? Yeah.
He did go missing, and he couldn't get. He tried to make those triangles on the edge of the box, and his work rate is terrific. He outruns Leeds outrun everybody. I think Shaq's the biggest runner, but he you know, it didn't quite happen for him. And you're thinking, sometimes he's a young lad, and you've got to be careful with. I think Bielsa knows his formations and knows his players, and when he gets it right tactically, Leeds do very well. And like you said, he's not afraid to admit that he got it wrong. That's the thing about Bielsa. He's not as stubborn as you think. If he thinks a situation needs resolving, he resolves it straight away. Like we say, he will haul off Phillips. He will haul off Struijk. He will haul off anybody, and it's usually defensive as well. And he spots things, Bielsa, and you've got to believe in him, haven't you? You've got to trust in him, man.
100%. I mean, I think I remember in the lead up to the game, obviously, we all know, and it did me to seem Gabby and all that shit. But I remember one of the key things he said was, if the way the media are going on about Bielsa, we need to be laying the red carpet out for Dean Smith. Now, if you look at that game, Dean Smith made one substitution and he took off Trezeguet for Traore, like for like. It didn't make no sense. Bielsa changed it after 25 minutes, totally flipped the game on its head, and we won out 3-0 winners. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference between the managers, you know, and that just showed it for me. But I just it's the goals and the manner of the goals. Like, for him to get a hat trick was just unbelievable. Like, it was, yeah, the goals as well were just spectacular. Let's be honest. That when he hit that second one. And it went in that top bins. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like
the technique of it.
Yeah, I was sat there with my head in my hands. I don't know where he pulled it from.
Yeah, so nonchalant, wasn't it? So, where's the backlift on that?
Yeah, and the thing was as well, it was in the lead up to it. He'd had that issue with Mings, and I remember being on the stream, and I was like, "That take that, Mings, you fuck!" Do you know what I mean? Oscar just was like silent celebration. It was the perfect answer. Because do you know what I've noticed as well, and I don't understand it, the hatred for Bamford outside of Leeds amongst other clubs. I don't understand it. Like, I love Palace, you know, well, Palace beat us 4-1, and I watched one of their YouTubers, and the first thing they said before they even started was like, "Just 1 second, Bamford, what's the score?" And I was like, "He's played about 20 minutes of football with you. Why do you hate the lad so much?" Villa fans hate him as well, obviously, after what happened in the Championship. So it was just meant to score him, to see him score a hat trick, man, and a very good hat trick. None of this. I remember when he scored away and it bounced off his knee or something, and then he gave it all this, and I was thinking, well, you didn't even fucking mean it, mate. It bounced off you. You didn't smash it from 20, 30 yards, but the finishes were brilliant. And like Mickey said, I can't remember finishes like that other than away at Preston. And I was lucky enough to be there that night, and when he pinged it was a beauty. So go on, Mickey, sorry.
I'll say the two finishes we talked about, second and third goals, clearly brilliant. But the first goal as well, like, you know, the sniffer. And because the shot goes across the keeper, but you see him wait before the shot's taken. You know, his anticipation, that's a striker's goal.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to him, it looks like a formality, but it's not. The keeper spreads himself really well. He has to put it right in the, you know, he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
And there, a lot of strikers miss those. And it with the way that he went, I can see the picture here. I know what might happen. I know where the ball might lie. And that for me were a striker's goal, and that's what we need. We need a bloody striker that can score. So to see his game kind of maturing inside the box like that, that for me is even more exciting than seeing that goal going, you know, in off the crossbar. I mean, that's obviously exciting, but we know he can do that. But what seeing him develop into a bit of a sniffer, that's even more exciting for me.
I think he's finally found a home at Leeds, hasn't he, Paddy?
Yeah.
He's finally found a place where he can come in, he can express himself, develop and score goals. And he's developed year on year, you know, since he's been with us. And I just think, you know, he's had a lot of criticism, and some of it's very just as well. But he's taken it on the chin, and he's properly worked hard to prove a lot of people wrong. And it's an absolute credit to that squad, because they're not the same without him. They're not the same without him, you know. There was a massive argument last season with him and Eddie Nketiah, and we started Eddie Nketiah 2 games in a row, and it just didn't work. You know, he is, you know, the first line of defence, and he works his fucking bollocks off to make sure that we win games.
I remember that game against West Brom, the last game before Eddie left. I don't know why, but Bielsa started him, which I thought was insane after he'd already said he was leaving. And we were shocking that first half, and then Bamford came on second half, scored the winner, you know, and it was, chalk and cheese. It's
not just his finishing, it's his all-round game. He's incredible.
It's probably
the way I think he's the... I say he's the best defensive attacker in the league, isn't he? The way he sprints at defenders off the ball. I don't really see any other strikers with that much intent. It's like, I'm not just closing you down. I'm going to try and get the ball off you. And then he goes again, and he cuts the angle. The work rate. I get knackered watching him.
He's like our Bobby Firmino, isn't he? He's our Bobby Firmino.
Kind of, but in his own way. I mean, that's a high compliment. Although he scores more than Bobby Firmino these days, isn't he? Freaking 1 goal last season. So, but I mean, here's a question for you all. I mean, can Bamford match 16 goals? I mean, he's got 8 already. I mean, can you imagine getting 16 goals? I mean, it's on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he's in running for player at month as well, isn't he? Fuck it, just go for golden boot, man. It's within his locker. Do it.
The amount of chances
imagine?
though, it's not totally for any if anyone outside the top 6, other than maybe Vardy's going to do it, it's going to be a striker who's playing in the team who creates so many chances, and the fact he's taken his efficiency is probably double what it was last season for me. I mean, you don't dream of Bamford scoring a hat-trick in one half last season. I mean, as good as I did think Paddy was last season, I think that first goal, as Mickey was saying, I think that's the goal that will really, really please Bielsa. That's the training ground goal. That is your striker coach saying, anticipate things, get in the right areas. And they're probably they're not the most pleasing goals to look at in terms of looking at your best goals of your career, but those are the ones that really show the top quality strikers. The Vardys, the Agueros, they score goals. They score most of their goals.
It doesn't like that. Strikers like Lineker is always the textbook kind of striker you go to. The ball always seems to falter in the box, but it doesn't. It's the anticipation. It's the picture they see. It's a few seconds beforehand, and that's what. If you're just aimlessly jogging, you'll be surprised at how many times the ball doesn't fall to you. But when you can see the picture quickly, like he did it, if you watch that goal again, watch him stop and assess. Before, and it's great. It's really good. And if he can develop that in his game a bit more, there's no reason why he can't go get bloody 20.
I don't think it's not something he can teach. I don't think. I think it's just an instinct that it's growing and growing within him. In going back to what you said, Oscar, about chances, when you're playing with a team with Jack Harrison, Click, and Rodrigo, Pablo to come on as well, you're going to get chances in the game. No matter who you're playing, you are going to get chances in the game. And if he can keep up this efficiency, he will be up there with some of the top scorers in the league, 100%.
But then we went on to obviously the next game. Obviously, Paddy, against Leicester City. It was a game where within 2 minutes we have a massive chance. The cutback off, I think it's the initial cross of Costa, the cutback of Harrison, and it's margins, isn't it? It's margins. Bamford misses the chance. Leicester, probably the best counter-attacking team in the league, most people would say.
100%.
Go up the other end. It's still a mistake from us, but ultimately it's the margins in this league. And I think, obviously, Ben, looking at that game, it just shows that the first goal is so key at this level. If Leeds score if Bamford scores that chance, there's not a chance that game turns into a situation where Leicester score 4 goals against Leeds. As far as if you ask me, I did not see Leicester absolutely hammering us if they didn't score the first goal. The fact they scored so early, and then to get the second one as well, that was one of those games. I think it was just a harsh lesson, wasn't it? That game more than anything, we probably learned a lot from that game.
A harsh lesson and a lack of control. It's the first game where we missed Calvin properly, and it's we all know what he does, but he brings a lot of mobility to that midfield. And when teams like Leicester come and they want to break and they want to play on the counter attack, it's that anticipation that he has to sniff out that danger, and we just didn't have that, unfortunately. Was a scoreline flattering? Absolutely, but when you're playing against Jamie Vardy, it could be anything because he genuinely is a top class striker. We didn't get into that game. It was weird. We didn't nothing ever seemed to click. Everything felt slow. Everything felt sloppy. We saw Pablo start, and I thought he were pretty sloppy as well. And it was just a bad day at the office. We've just, waxed lyrical about Paddy Bamford, and that chance earlier on the game, you can kind of brush that under the carpet because it's an early chance. He's not always going to be accustomed to the game. He's not already in it. It's 2 minutes in. But there was a chance further in the game where he went 1-on-1 with Schmeichel, and it probably should have scored. But fine margins, absolutely. But we were just punished by a team who, know how to play on the break.
Top of the league as well. You can't forget that. And as much as I think the first game we saw Rodrigo kind of missing, and as Ben was saying, Pablo just didn't quite step up into Rodrigo's shoes on the day. I mean, was that your feeling on it, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, I even think, just on Pablo, I even think he looked off it against Liverpool. It looked like the pace was just a little bit too quick. And I love Pablo, so it's difficult to say, but I felt in that game as well. Although, I mean, to be fair, if he scores that goal, we might go on and win the game. You know, there was still something in it for us at that point, right? When he hits the stanchion, bam, right in the corner. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? But I think he was off it in that game, if I'm being totally honest, because I was a little bit surprised. And I said so in my post-match. I felt he's the way that he reacted after being substituted wasn't really warranted, because I didn't think that he was having an amazing performance just from my own personal standpoint. But obviously he's a footballer, so he just wants to play, and Pablo knows what he can do, and maybe just hitting the stanchion, he thinks he's going to get something in the game, which I understand. But yeah, I mean, Leicester was difficult to take, being it really the first game for me where we were outclassed in a little bit, in a way, you know, where we did look, wow, yeah, this is a little bit of a step too far. But I think the Leicester, Wolves, Palace, they have the perfect setup for Bielsa ball. You know, that's the truth of it. And when you've got Jamie Vardy, and we all know about Harvey Barnes as well. Let's not forget what Harvey Barnes did to us in that West Brom side, man, in that first season under Bielsa. He absolutely tore us a new one. Yeah, he is. He's brilliant. Well,
I think he was instrumental in the third goal, wasn't he? That killed us, really. That killed us.
Yeah, it went into Maddison, and then that's what I'm saying when they're bringing off Maddison.
Maddison. Yeah, so it's Maddison. I'm getting out. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but they bring Maddison off the bench. They bring Under off the bench. Under looked special, didn't he? And that little dink pass he did for Vardy was a beauty.
That was definitely a shot, though, wasn't it? Come on.
Do you think I thought it was a pass?
He was going to finish that, mate.
Do you reckon?
He was trying to put that in goal.
The ball was there. He dinked it over, didn't he?
I agree with Joe, actually.
Yeah, I think he because the goal was there and he dinked it like that. I mean, if he's gone to shoot and it's gone there, then I don't know there.
He shanked it, mate. He shanked it. That's what I believe. He shanked it.
Nah, they just look pretty decent, and like you say, we were missing Calvin in that game, and maybe if he'd have started with Strauch in that game, it might have been different. But obviously Shackleton had such a good performance against Villa that rightly so. I think it was the first time as well, guys, I'd ever heard Bielsa say, I think he said any one of them 22 players could play that night. And that's really the first time because I actually sat back and thought, oh, wow, we're going to see some changes here. Because normally he's got his 11 and it's hard to break into that. But he actually said in the press conference leading up to it, it was the first time that like, any 22 could play because they'd obviously all shown bits. But I think the surface didn't help. There was a number of errors as well, like Koch when the ball comes. I mean, we didn't even get to see the first goal properly because Paddy Bamford had just missed the sitter. Yeah. And then they were like, all of a sudden it's in the back of the net. And I was like, what's going on there? But Koch went with his wrong foot, which meant it didn't make it to Meslier. We couldn't.
He was off balance as well.
He
slipped just before he passes it. He slips and
he sort of ran past it, didn't he?
And he goes it wrong. He goes for that toe poke. A little bit more of a calmer head, and he should be making a late decision there and going, "I'm not going to do that." And he had time to shift it onto his left and just play it. Do you know what though? I want to offer a different perspective than I know. It looks like we couldn't get back into the game particularly that third goal killed us. Because at 2-1, when we strike the bar from Pablo and he makes that, we know that body shape. We know he takes the ball down and he shifts it back onto, and he drops that left shoulder, and it's close or it's in. And you saw the shape on that edge area, and I was up. I thought it was in, and it's a stanchion. That's 2-2, and I'm telling you now, it's a different game. But he didn't quite go in. It's two individual errors. You can't fault the tactics when Koch does that. And I'm not having a go at Koch because mistakes happen. And I think he's been phenomenal. And I think he's arguably, we might have one of the best defenders in the Premier League there. He's German international, incredible player. But I feel like that Leicester game, it could have been it could have gone the other way. We could have beat them. I'm telling you now. I feel like we could have beat them 4-1. If that Patrick Bamford header, you can
Bamford goes in, yeah.
It goes and it's a bit of a reaction header. He gets a decent connection. It's straight at the keeper, you just want a bit more of a foresight there. You don't see Shearer missing that. Don't get me wrong, but that's one of the greatest strikers I've ever seen. But it happens. Strikers miss those chances. If that goes in, I'm telling you now, we could run away with that because they've got to come at us. And that's when we're at our best. I think we're just missing that, a bit of luck in that first goal. Think back to the Championship when we got that first goal, we hardly dropped a point. And when we go 2-0 down against the Premier League outfit, then you fear the worst because they can sit in. They can really defend. They've got world-class players. Yes, they can break away. In the Championship, it was more difficult for them.
I think as well, Joe, you picked up on it. You know, they brought Maddison on and they brought Under on as well. We had no options like that on the bench on the night. You know, Raphinha was out with an ankle injury. Rodrigo was out due to COVID being in contact with someone with COVID. You know, there were no real direct threat that we could bring on, no experience that we could bring on to affect the game. You know, our hands were tied and we'd gone in the game with a game plan and it just didn't quite work. I think there were just a little bit of a lack of control in midfield. You know, Calvin were missing as well. But it were the options that they had, as well as the quality on the pitch, that made the difference on the day.
Like Tielemans and that, like they're no jokes, are they? You know, the top players. You know, top players.
I think though, every team we play against, like everyone was saying, well, you know, before we came up, we've talked about the Villa game, but people are shitting it before that, and they're going Grealish, Barkley, and rightly so as well. And we keep them quiet. We have got the ability as a team and the way that we play to absolutely dominate teams and to keep them quiet and to not let them get the ball in good areas, not give them the space. I just think we've been a bit unlucky. And I really believe in this system. I feel like its beauty should win out in the end, shouldn't it? It's a romantic way of playing football that Bielsa does. And we talk about these great players. Maddison, we've mentioned, came on. Bringing obviously Jamie Vardy is probably the best counter-attacking striker in world football. Arguably, he's up there, isn't he? Definitely. But I feel like we could go to Leicester and they will not get opportunities because the way that we play, we strangle teams. Yeah, they can't get out. Palace couldn't get out. Leicester couldn't get out. You forget these spells in the game we had. They couldn't get out for 40, 50 minutes. We completely dominated them. I think we're just lacking that. I feel like we're lacking a Pablo in the Championship. You know, like that 10 that can unlock. Rodrigo, we've mentioned him, has been. I'll tell you what's really impressive about Rodrigo is his pressing, and I think he's made the most. He's the most aggressive presser in the whole of the Premier League, and you don't see that. You know, when you look at the stats afterwards and you look at the people who analyse it, the experts, and you go, wow. And we see players on the ball, don't we? But the off the ball stuff he does, he's really impressive. But I've heard rumours about this DePaul kid again, and Bielsa saying that we need to go for him in January. You feel like that's the missing piece when we're dominating the game, when the ball goes up to, like at Palace, like at Vardy as well, like at Leicester, the ball goes up to the striker and we just win it back straight away, and we're still pressing. This happens all the time in our games. We go through patches where we just control. And we need someone to unlock that. We need that magic, and we haven't quite got that world-class player. I think that's the only thing I can say in our team at the minute that's going wrong a little bit, and we just need that. We need Pablo Hernandez in the Championship, in the Premier League, don't we? And it's a big ask of Pablo now. It's 35.
Yeah, I mean, do you think
better, I don't think.
Do you think Raphinha could be that player, Mickey?
Potentially. You saw that. I'm only judging him by a couple of videos I've seen at Rennes, where he's come inside. He likes going on the right and coming in on his left, and he's he's got a couple of beauty goals. But you judge a player by the way that they move with the ball, and he was effortlessly. He beat a couple of players, and Palace are good defenders. And then you look at those cross-field balls he was doing, and you're thinking, Christ, that is technique. You look at that free kick, and we haven't had a free kick taker that is for a long time. I know that Calvin scored the odd one, but I mean that left foot of his, it looks like a wand. Yeah, the odd one is one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one. Yeah,
I really think this guy potentially could be very exciting. You've got to be wary of Brazilians; they're often overrated, and you don't know how he's going to fit in. You don't know how well he's going to settle, but it looks like he's got a good attitude, and Bielsa's talking about him settling very quickly, and it's all about learning the system with Bielsa. It's not about a player coming in and doing well on the ball. It's about what you're doing off the ball. It's about that rotation of man marking, because when one player doesn't do his job, we look like a chaotic team that can't defend. I mean, that 11 players, every time you watch Leeds, the commentators wax lyrical about this new and original and unique style of playing, which is what we've got. And it's more defensive than you think. It's all about the man marking, and it's all about swapping men as well. And it's all about pressing the ball. When someone does get beat, you've got to make that right choice to press or to hold and then if you see someone else press, you've got to go to their man. And it's all about making the right decisions at the right time. And when it works, we strangle teams. They cannot get out. But when it goes wrong, you're pretty much giving them a one-on-one, aren't you? Because they can pass it. The quality that we're playing against, it's literally like, here you go, have a chance. And that's what we're up against here with the Leeds team. When it goes wrong very quickly. But if you can believe in this system and if you can see it working, which I can, then I feel like we are pushing the top 6, because I feel like we can. And it's difficult to say that when you've just lost 2 games 4-1, but I maintain it, and that's when you should be saying it. Don't be judgmental. Don't throw your peak end view is a really good psychological trait to be aware of. It means you overestimate the recent events and forget the bigger picture. And every football fan, it's difficult not to suffer from peak end view. I always remember weekend view. It's a good way of remembering it. Peak end view. Don't let the last game obscure the full picture. When you look at the stats and you look at what we're doing and you look at the bit of lady luck and the odd mistake here and there, and the fact that our system falls apart very quickly when someone doesn't do the job properly off the ball, or doesn't press properly, or doesn't keep the man, then you've got to remember that players like Raphinha coming in, they have to learn that system very, very quickly. And if they don't, I'd rather have a 5 out of 10 player who knows the system than a 10 out of 10 player that isn't quite up to date on it. Because, like I said, it's a pack of cards waiting to fall down. That if one of the cards isn't holding properly, the whole thing comes down. But I feel like, are we going to get better as the season goes on? Is Bielsa going to? Are we going to back Bielsa to get to grips with this Premier League, the standard, the pace, and work out what he needs to do and improve the players? I'm going to back him. I still think, if I'm being honest, I think a top 8 finish. I think top 6 is a little hopeful, but I still believe in it. And like I say, Lee Smith there, he's put lactic acid football. I said that to right. Look out for this, right? I said that to Henry Winter. We interviewed him on the Bielsa Bible. I put it in his head. I said, that's what it is. It's lactic acid football. Players can't cope when the lactic acid, the dizziness, and your balance goes. We have got something. The way that we train, I just feel like we can go all the way. I feel like we can do it. Top 8. I really feel like we can do it.
So when we see Henry Winter with that, I don't know what's going on with Oscar. He's dipped out again. When we see Henry Winter with that headline, lactic acid behaviour, you can be like, that's
honestly,
me.
Like, lads, yeah, I did it on purpose. I said to him when I interviewed him, I thought as a kind of like a precursor to this, I thought I'm going to put lactic acid football in Henry Winter's head, and he's probably the top journalist in Britain, isn't he? He's got about 1.5 million followers or something. And if I can put that in his head, so if you ever see lactic acid football here, it started here. And we can all go, yes, Mickey, fucking get in.
Copyright it, Mickey. Copyright it.
When we go on a winning streak of 3 or 4 games, which I'm desperately hoping will happen, that's when you'll hear lactic acid football, because teams can't cope with us. They can't. And if they get honestly, the first goal is so big in a Bielsa game, isn't it? If it goes to us, they at some point have to start being more expansive, and that plays right into our hands. I just feel like the first goal is I know, again, it's a cliche in football, but if we get it, the way that we play, we could fucking batter them. Absolutely. I'm sorry to use language, but I there's 4 lads that use language, but I feel like, honestly, we are gonna. I might look like a fool here saying this, but I feel like we've been on the end of 2-4-1s where I honestly feel like it could be the other way. I feel like every game we play, I feel like we could batter them 5-0. And that is an inspiring thought. Bielsa inspires hope. And that's what he said. The role of a manager is to inspire hope. And it's true. It is true of that. When you You look at Man United fans, and we're going to review the Arsenal game, and I won't touch too much on it, but their fans are shit. They are shit, and they're sick of it. Man United, they're sick of it. All these massive clubs that are playing shite football, and every game we go in there and you feel like we can win it. People have just got to keep their heads, back the team, back the manager. The players are doing well. It's a unique system.
Yeah.
Raphinha, I've just got off on a massive 20-minute
I was literally just sat here thinking, what the fuck did I ask
20 goals.
Do you know what, Mickey?
You know, it's like a Jonasol batch. You just press go and I'm fucking off.
I'll let you into a little secret.
Lad.
I said to Oscar before, I says, Oscar, it's your week hosting it. I said, good luck with Mickey. I said, get some. But you're right, though, Mickey, because when I spoke to a Palace fan, and we'll move on to the Palace game, like, when I was speaking before that game, even though we were on the end of a spanking, I was talking like saying, look, this season under Bielsa, I think we'll be pushing top half. You know, I'm like you, Mickey. I think we can still go on. Obviously, 2 4-1 results has made me think, maybe not so much. But I was talking, man, we can knock on the door of Europe. Let's do a Sheffield United. Let's do a Wolves. But I think the Crystal Palace fan was just like his whole, and bearing in mind they've been in this division for 8-9 seasons, and he's just talking like, we just want to stay in the division. He said, I'm so envious of yous. And I was like, because I said, this management team we have, this structure we have, wherever we finish next year, know that we will go again, and we will go again. And I said, it won't be too long before we will be in Europe. And I genuinely believe that. And hearing other Premier League, like your Burnley, your Palace and stuff, it must be so boring. And that's why I always caveat it when I see people say stuff about Bielsa, and when I'm doing my videos, enjoy it, because it ain't going to be here forever. And when it goes, trust me, when we're bringing in some no marks, when we're struggling and there's a chance of relegation and we have to bring in some guy who's just playing shocking football, I hope to God that never happens and we make sure the recruitment's right, because that's one key thing, is that when Bielsa moves on, we need someone who's in that mould, because we've seen it like with Stoke. They had Pulis, they tried to rip up the rule book, went for Hughes, brought in all these fancy players, and then within a couple of seasons they were gone. You know, so we need to make sure that's right. That was my little tangent there as well. There.
No, Joe, I want to expand on that, because you're exactly right. And we will. At the moment, we are a fearless team that go out, and you will back us to beat anybody. Yeah, it can go wrong. But I'll tell you now, we are going to be that team again, Joe. We are, because every club goes through that phase. We are going to be a club that your team gets the ball and there's no one to pass to, and they lump it up. We are going to be that team that sits back and allows that team to attack us. And it's like, it's so emasculating, isn't it? You're just like, oh, we're so brave. We go out and we're like, fuck you. We're better than you. Let's fucking have it. And that's how we play. And that is beautiful. And we're going to lose that when Bielsa goes. It's gone. So enjoy it while it's here, because we're fearless.
My thought on that's a little bit different. I think Bielsa leaves a legacy behind with him. I feel like the club have fully bought into Bielsa and what he does, hence why he's kind of been given the freedom to do and make the changes that he has at Thorpe Arch. It will be a very difficult process to find a successor, but the way that everything's been implemented so far, and you look at Thorpe Arch and how the first team and the 23s and the 18s, 16s, 17s and 15s, they're all training the same way. There's definitely a belief, and there's definitely a culture being built at the club, and it's important, and I'm not gonna, I can't directly compare it to Cruyff at Barcelona, but what he did at the club and how he changed and how he used La Masia to build that team, and they were a juggernaut in European football. And if Bielsa can do 2% of that at Thorpe Arch and give us that platform to really strive, I'm all for it. I think that we'll do things the right way. I think Radrizzani, I think Orta, I think Kinnear, I think they've all really bought into what Bielsa can do and the project. And I think that it's something that we'll see progression in the future, and it's something that should be very exciting. I genuinely believe that. The thing
is, though, it can go wrong so quickly, though, Ben. Like you get your manager in, whoever it comes in, and it can just go wrong so quickly. And then you're chasing your tail. And let's be honest, the squad we've got is all about the Bielsa system. And there's not you know, that when you look at the individual players, that's a relegation team. That's a relegation scrap. I feel like we haven't got world class players. I don't think Rodrigo potentially maybe. I don't know. We haven't got world class players. It's that simple. So when we lose the manager, I think actually unless we make some marquee signings, and that's always risky because you don't want to sign a player past his peak. I think it can unravel really quickly. It's difficult to predict the future, but when Bielsa goes, I think we could be in a little bit of trouble, if I'm honest.
I just think there's a clear identity and culture being built, and you know when Bielsa...
that can be wrong man comes in, dismantles it. You know, you've got to remember that a manager can. Can
I agree with that.
So
I just think that the process of that man being chosen will be very extensive.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they'll be very careful, and I just think that I think when Bielsa leaves, he leaves us with the foundations to do something special, and you know it's up to the decisions at the top of the club that if they run with it or not. They need to bring someone who believes in what's there already. So I get what you're saying, I completely do, but I think for them to bring in a manager who want to tear it up and rip it apart and start again, it would just be the wrong step from the club anyway.
Allardyce for me.
Let's get Warnock back. Let's get him off the South Coast.
One last challenge, Sharon. One last challenge. I'm going to get Leeds I'm taking Leeds to Europe, Sharon. We're taking Leeds to Europe.
Go on, Oscar.
You look at it. You vote.
We're taking Leeds back to the Championship. Fuck him.
I'm sure he'd love a chance, wouldn't he? You look at Palace, though. They beat us 4-1. There were a lot of Palace fans are going on about, Hodgson's been and won all these trophies. What's Bielsa ever won and all this lot? But I look at it. Palace might have won the battle, but Leeds United have still won the war because Leeds United have got a style of football there that can be progressive. Crystal Palace are never going to finish in the top 10 in the Premier League. I'm confident of that. Yeah, they'll never finish in the top 10 in the Premier League because they don't play attacking enough football. On another day against Leeds United, a VAR decision goes for us. They don't get that free kick. They don't win that game. They're not trying to be bitter. They do what they do well, but they're limited. As Joe said, 8 or 9 seasons they've been doing that, and they're happy to do it. Yeah. Fair enough, they're happy to do that. But Leeds United, under Marcelo Bielsa, it's not so much the expectations that have risen for me. It's the whole way of doing things. I don't think now, Leeds United, we'd accept us going to play Arsenal and just sitting back. We're not going to do that. But if we went out and said, okay, let's let Arsenal have 70% of the ball and just pass themselves to boredom and we'll hit them on a counter-attack, etc., etc., it's just not going to happen. And they just look at that Palace game and think, yeah, they can laugh at us, etc., etc. They can mock us and that lot. But that's the big thing with this Marcelo Bielsa team is that, this season we might not finish in the top 10, but you always feel like, as Joe was saying, it always feels like we're going to continue to improve. We've already done it under Bielsa. The first season, people were saying, oh, that's it for Leeds. They had the chance to be promoted. They've lost all these players, etc., etc. They finished third. They bottled at the end of the season, but they were always going to go up that next level. It's always a learning process. As Mickey says, Bielsa is not a stubborn man. Bielsa will adapt all the time. He will get that next 10%, and it will always go up another 10, 20% season on season. I just don't see that changing.
Look at the trajectory. At this club. Look at the trajectory between us and Derby.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Look where we've gone.
That could have been us, lads. It could have been us languishing and overspending and then not going up. I tell you now, we had to go up. When you look at COVID hitting now, because that's going to hit the Championship massively. The Premier League is the only league immune now financially, and Bielsa might have saved our fucking club, lads, as we know it. Like literally going up last season because of this pandemic was, you don't realise how big it was because we lose a lot of money on match days, with huge gate receipts and stuff like that. You get fuck all money. We know about that on Sky in the Championship. Honestly, that Derby situation is perilous. Being in the Premier League is the be-all and end-all now for this club. We cannot afford to go down at all. I don't think it's on the cards, even one slight bit. But you mentioned about Crystal Palace. I actually think they'll do all right this year. But the reason is I think that Eze is one of the best players in England. I honestly, I was gutted we didn't sign him. When he played for QPR, he was the best player on the pitch. We could not get the ball off him. Do you know what he reminds me of? Zidane. He reminds. I know that's a massive thing to say, and he hasn't got the fancy footwork of Zidane, but he's got the way he moves his body. He is outstanding. It's him that put that free kick in. Obviously, got Zaha, who's incredible as well.
It just gets that perfect.
Palace have often been that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Eze is going to make a big difference if he can stay fit and stay in that team. He will make a massive difference to them creatively because he's so good going forward. So good at ball retention. He's a real player. He's been so underrated. He is incredible. I think he's an England star in the making. And they've signed a player there that's about to come on strong. So they'll do well. And they've got Zaha and Townsend. You look at him, how frustrated has he been? Zaha, there's this shit team that wait and hope for a bit of brilliance from these amazing attacking players. They've got a good front three, but this season it's a bit different for them. I think we've played them at the wrong time. You are right about them not being a top 10 club. They might finish around there. We've played a very informed team. They're 7th as well. I think we've played some tough fixtures. Leicester, City, Liverpool, that's your top, they're 3 of your top 4. Wolves, they're in the top 6. We played an on-form Villa. We smashed them. We've played a shit Fulham team and actually probably should have done better. Sheffield United looks like it was a good time to play them. So, but we've still played either. In half the games we've had have been top 4, top 5 teams. And I think we can expect even better against Arsenal, Everton. Because there's 2 ways to look at this Premier League outfit now, lads. Everybody can go Aubameyang, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You can name any bloody world star you want in any Premier League team. And here's another way of looking at it. Any team, they're there for the taking. They're inconsistent, all of them, and we can fucking have them. And if you don't believe that, then Bielsa has not done the job he should have done for you. Bielsa gives you hope and he raises expectations. I'm not prepared to take an 11th spot. I want a top 10 finish. I want to be in the top 10. I want to be in the top half, and that's minimum for me. I expect to be knocking on the door of Europe. That's what, because he's raised our expectation levels so much. That's how we've got to look at this, lads.
Come again with talk like that.
Yeah, I'm going positive, lads. I'm telling you now. A year ago, I was sick of it because obviously, Ben, you're 23. When I was your age, we were fucking semi-final of the Champions League, mate. You know what I mean? I didn't support a League One team. I supported the mighty Leeds United. And then what we've gone through as a fan base, I was just sick of it, and I couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and I just felt like it were all doom and gloom, and I was sick at Championship. Look at us now. I think we're 12th, 13th in the Premier League. Fucking hell, I'd have beaten you. I'd have eaten your mum out. You know, it wouldn't have mattered. I'd have done anything.
The drink's kicking in. The drink's kicking in.
I proper wasn't expecting that, Mickey, mate. I really.
I know it came out of nowhere because I wanted to wake you up. Wake up. We're fucking brilliant. We're living the dream. Stop being pessimistic. It don't matter. You know what? Realistically speaking, a team coming up, you're saying 17th is all right. And a lot of Leeds fans are saying that. We're fucking miles better than that. Top 7 or fuck off. Come on. We're doing it.
Can I just
absolutely.
Say, please don't.
It's Monday. Let's have it.
Please don't.
Yeah. We'll put someone else. On Twitter.
Next week, you're knock at Tom, and it's like, oh, Oscar, it's your Uncle Mickey.
I've come to eat your mum out. Where is she? I'm a man of my word.
Oh man.
Your mum don't watch this, does she, Oscar?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. My mum does.
God, right. Come on, Oscar.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We're playing Arsenal at a good time, you know, just because we kind of skirted on the Crystal Palace game. You know, it was a frustrating one, but let's look forward. Let's look at the Arsenal game. We're playing Arsenal at a good time, as Mickey says. I saw some Arsenal fans. They're not happy. You know, there's a percentage of Arsenal fans, not quite as bad as what the Wenger situation was, but there's a bit of doubt with Arteta, you know. We obviously had an Arsenal fan on Friday, Mike from Mostly Soccer, and he was very happy about Arteta. But I've seen Arsenal fans say that Mikel Arteta is just a sexy Sam Allardyce. I've seen that on Twitter. I've seen that on. That's what I've seen on Twitter. So I mean,
is that even possible?
That's what they're saying. A sexy Sam Allardyce. But I mean, Ben, I mean, it's good times to be playing Arsenal. Aubameyang, as much as Mickey was saying, he's only actually scored 2 goals. One for open play. Lacazette's missing sitters. Not getting Pepe into the team. Partey's just come in and he's trying to lift the whole team. There's got to be confidence going into that game of some sort, at least.
I think it's the perfect game for us to get back into winning ways, if I'm completely honest. And I say that with no arrogance whatsoever. I say it because I've looked at the last 2 games we've played, Leicester and against Palace. And I've spoken, I mentioned it on Talking Shutt. They were very keen to get the ball up to the top end of the pitch straight away. Hoof it long, because they wanted to beat the press, which we are incredibly, incredibly good at. Arsenal, now we've just sat and talked about how pragmatic Bielsa can be. Arteta's very set in his ways. This is his first managerial appointment, and he's very stubborn and he's very adamant that he wants his players to play out from the back. I think the press that we've got, I think it'll terrorize Arsenal. I genuinely do, and I think it's a perfect game to build a little bit of confidence and to go and to get a win. I think the way that they play, or they try to play, it's still early days for them. I do think it's the perfect game for us to go and at least get a result. But I expect to win. I genuinely do. And saying that and talking about Arsenal in that way, you maybe not expect it, but they're very, they're in a very early stage of the development under Arteta, and it's not quite clicked yet.
I was wondering where you were going there, Mickey. I was wondering when you were heading for that door there. I was thinking, are you going in your car now? And
did your mum's phone ring?
Come on with the Premier League. Come on.
Mum, don't answer it. It's Mickey.
When he was heading for the door, I was like,
cut off.
He knows me.
I'll put an internet cable at my mum's house. Do you know what? There's 2 ways to look at the Arsenal game, though. I mean, that international break has been great for them because they're on a bad run. And you need that breathing space, and 2 weeks is a long time in football, especially with the the drama of it all. And I mentioned peak end view, 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, you're the fucking best team in the fucking world. So it can totally change round. And with Arteta, I think you're right though, Ben. When I heard you say at the end there that it's early in his project, I rate him as a Pep-esque. He's coming, kind of manager. He's trying to play the modern style of football, but they're really goal shy. They're really shot shy, but what they do have is when they do create chances, they've got a really high XG in terms of converting them, haven't they? Because they create. I think Pep's like, if it's not a brilliant chance, pass it, and I think that's the kind of vibe he's got. But see, you feel like for Arsenal, it could. I know I've just said they're there for the taking. It could click for him, and you could see that you can't. Aubameyang is that good that he's due an hat-trick. And that's the other way, you've got to back your world-class strikers. He is world-class, no doubt. Class is permanent. Let's not forget, right, that Harry Kane was taking a lot of stick at the start of the season and people writing him off. A man who scored 200 goals in 300 games at the top levels. This is one of the best strikers in the world. I mean, incredible. And people are ready to slag him off. Aubameyang is really good. He's on about 400 grand a week for a reason because he plays for Arsenal and they'll fucking pay that. But, they'll give it to fucking Ozil, but he is incredible. So we could be on the end of an Arsenal resurgence in the sense that it clicks again for them, and they've played some good stuff. They're just inconsistent. You feel like I honestly feel like it's like literally when we go into the game, flick a coin, heads or tails. We smash them or we get battered, but you've got to enjoy that. But I actually feel like Arsenal, you've got to enjoy it in the Premier League certainly. Not in the Championship, because that's how it used to be, lads. We forget that. It used to be like we turned up in the Championship and we're probably going to fucking lose. We're shit. Remember, no one could pass the ball to each other. And now there's always options. There's always a way of winning. And you just feel like Arsenal, it could go either way. They're there for the take. And I could see us winning 4-0. I could see us losing 4-0. That's every game. Everton, inconsistent. Started well, been on a bad run. Any team, lads, we can smash them. Rodrigo back in the side. Let's not put too much pressure on Calvin either. Coming back after 6 weeks, is he going to be match fit? Is he going to be firing on all cylinders. I feel a bit sorry for Calvin in the sense that I think his form suffered a little bit being in the England team and being massive in that spotlight. And I just feel like with this Leeds team, people say, "Oh, we're missing this player, we're missing that player." I don't think we are. Sometimes I don't think anyone. I think everyone's replaceable in this Leeds team. I think it's about the system and it's about the right man at the right time. Playing Shaq. Do you play Shaq or do you play Strike? It's that kind of. I've quite liked Klitsch in that Phillips role as well. If I'm honest with you, he brings a certain energy. That's the great thing about Bielsa and this Bielsa team. It's so unpredictable in terms of performances in the Premier League. You know, in the Championship, we're going to dominate the game, but in the Premier League, I can guarantee you now, we will dominate 60% of that game. We'll probably dominate 60 minutes, but are we going to have that bloody awful 15, 20 minutes? You know, we look like, I'll be honest with you, we've looked like we've been run over a few times, don't we? And that's the only thing for me. It's like, if we can get that early goal, or we can avoid that 10, 15 minute goal where they get on top, if we can keep a clean sheet, I think we can beat anybody, lads. We can beat anybody. We should remember where we've come from and remember where we are, and remember that if you can't enjoy this now, you may as well fucking just hang that fucking flag up, that scarf up, fuck off, and not even support a football team, because this is as good as it gets, lads. This is it. I know we're not winning. We're not winning. We're not at the top. We're not challenging for Europe. We're not challenging for titles, and we have been before. But this is still as good as that from where we've been. Let's go. My prediction: 4-0 win or 4-1 loss.
Nice. I think we'll do all right. I think Calvin's back. Hopefully, Rodrigo comes back in. Raphinha starts on the right ahead of Costa. Ayling back to his best. That's just my opinion. I think we'll do all right against Arsenal. But like Mickey says, I mean, if they counter us, which I know Arteta's been adopting that sort of style of play, you know, catching people on the counter. It'll be interesting to see if he plays with Partey and El Neni. I'm not sure because they played really well against Man United. But look, when they've got Willian, Pepe, Aubameyang, Lacazette, even Eddie off the bench, you know, we all know Eddie can score.
Eddie's great.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but it's what you're here for. And I think the lads will be well up for it. They know the oars of performance. Not that they haven't performed in the last two, but they'll be hurting after conceding 8 goals. I mean, who wouldn't? But this Leeds United side and Bielsa side will be hurting, and I think they'll come out. And as long as we're clinical, because we will get chances in the game. Listen, I think I heard Ben and you guys on Talking Shut talking about the defensive frailties and the likes of David Luiz, etc. in the back four, and I know Gabriel's been good, but are they that great defensively, Arsenal? I'm not so sure. No. So I think they can be got at. So we've just got to be clinical. Bamford's got to have his shooting boots on, because we've seen against Leicester they were lacking, but then against Villa they were brilliant. And he was. Is
it Bamford though, or is it? I mean, I'm going to go back to a player that I've slagged off loads, and I sit corrected because he's been brilliant. But yeah, do you feel like his final ball's gone missing last 2 or 3 games? I mean, I know he's put a couple of decent crosses, but you feel like when our wide players, you've mentioned Costa being replaced. Costa's been good this year as well. But when our wide players aren't on form in terms of that final delivery, we suffer, don't we? That's when we really suffer with creativity. You feel like if we've got our crossing boots on, because there's too many. It's all about going wide in it for us, unless we can penetrate very rarely through the middle, unless they're stretched. But you think, is it Bamford, or is it the fact that our wide players haven't quite been as good as they have been in terms of delivery at the start of the season? Does that make a massive difference to us? I feel like it does.
I mean, it makes it very difficult for us. When Rodrigo's missing, I feel like everything's got to come from Costa or Harrison. Yeah, I think definitely. You look at the start of the season as well. Liverpool, Fulham were great in both games, but all our threat going forward kind of came off those two, just getting 1v1 against the fullback and just beating him. Because I think even this season, I think Bill Ayling and obviously Stewie Dallas, I don't think they've been able to get forward quite as much as what they did last season. I think last season,
Yeah.
you saw Luke Ayling. He was creating 2 or 3 chances at the half at times. Remember that Huddersfield game? He was just honestly, he was like De Bruyne at right back. He was just pinging ball off the ball into the box and causing havoc all the time. And I think that's definitely something to look at, Mickey. I think obviously Click, I think it's probably been our best player so far this season for me. It's quite a lot of contenders there, but I think Click's just had that bit of consistency. But even then, I just think we probably do need to look a little bit at those wide areas. I think obviously Joe's mentioned Raphinha. I think Raphinha is the one who kind of knits it all together. I think you've seen at Chelsea. I don't like to bring Chelsea into anything, but Chelsea, you've seen how much of a difference bringing Ziyech into their team has done for them. Yeah. I feel like Raphinha is our kind of like mini Ziyech to an extent. He's a lot younger and he's a lot quicker as well. I just feel he's going to have that kind of impact. So he's going to really start to just penetrate through that middle of the pitch and just create chance after chance after chance, and added to our already fantastic creativity, really. But I mean, looking at it, guys, obviously, just a very quick one before we go on to the 1 to 5. I mean, would you agree? I mean, would you say Click player of the season so far, or anyone else to sort of throw into the mix? If I go to Mickey first.
Yeah, when you said he was player of the season, weird one is Meslier kind of did come into my thoughts as well, because I know that against in the last game against Palace, he's probably made his biggest mistake in terms of that own goal, that deflected cross. Sorry, that was poor keeping. But he's been outstanding, and if there's one player that I think we could do without losing, it's in a strange way, it's Meslier. He's been really, really good, and a good keeper can mask a poor performance. A good keeper can be the difference between 1 point or 3 points so many times. Klitsch comes into it definitely, and I think Bamford, you've got to give him that. No, 8 goals. I mean, is it 8 goals in 8 games? I mean, that in the Premier League is outstanding. Not many players are doing that. So for me, I'm gonna give it to Bamford, but Klitsch is right there next to him in many respects. I agree. He's doing so well. I mean, he has hit the Premier League, took the Premier League by storm. You're not quite sure how they're going to do it in the Championship. Can they make that step up? And I don't think there's any player now that we could doubt. I think they all have done. And Klitsch, he's played every position in midfield. In that central midfield, he's played the Phillips role well, I thought. But yeah, he's so difficult to play against, isn't he? So difficult. But yeah, I'd agree. Klitsch. I'll give. Klitschford. I'll say.
What are you saying, Ben? Are you saying Click or Bamford, or is anyone else you'd throw into the mix there so far? First quarter of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Click's definitely a stand-up performer, and it's hard to argue otherwise. Especially when you look at his backstory at Leeds, how he was brought in and then loaned out, always saying that he'd come back with a point to prove him. Boy, has he. He saw Bielsa coming in as an opportunity and grabbed it with both hands, and he's just thrived. He's been a complete midfielder, winning the ball back, creating chances. He's been everything that you want him to be. But yeah, again, honourable mentions for Bamford, who's been outstanding, and Stuart Dallas for just being Stuart Dallas and just being that all-out utility player that puts in a solid shift week in, week out. Never looks out of place. Whether it's at left back, right back, or centre midfield, he's a very key cog in the Leeds United wheel, so to speak, and credit to him. But Click so far has been outstanding.
Joe, are you going to complete the goals?
Yeah, Click for me. Bamford, of course, obviously scoring the goals that he has, but Click's just been special. It's mad, just again his trajectory, to think that he was in that group, the maybes under Bielsa, and Forshaw gets injured, he brings him across, then he plays like almost 100 games consecutively. And then now he's, laying on goals for Lewandowski in the Polish national team, and he's
what a ball that was, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh shit! That was Robin Koch as well. Did you see that? The pre-assist the other day. Sorry to interrupt you.
He assisted the assist.
The pre-assist, yeah, the assist of the assist. Robin, what are your thoughts on him, Joe? By the way, and I'll ask you all that. I know we've talked about Click, and he has. I think we can all agree, probably player of the season and amazing. Every player wants Click in the side. But what are your thoughts on Robin Koch? Because he's come in. We've got that. We've got that that slot in defence that needs filling. Ben White's gone. For me, I personally think he's been outstanding.
He's for me. And I guess the lads. He has been great, and I think he took a bit of an unfair stick in the first two.
We get away the penalty. Terrible start at Liverpool.
Yeah, but I think I think obviously he gives away the pen, but first game against Liverpool, I thought he took a bit of unfair flack. He actually played pretty decent, and against Fulham he played decent. It was just that stupid lunge, regardless of whether or not you think it's a penalty. He started from about 5 yards away sliding, so I was thinking, what are you doing? So it was a stupid decision, but overall he's been good. The only thing I will say is sometimes he's a little bit overzealous for me. He's a little bit eager to want to do too well. So when there's a ball in the air and it's there for competing, he's just fucking all in. And I think against Leicester, there was a few times, and against Palace, where he's a little bit overzealous and they're round him. But that's the only thing I would say. But that'll come with time, man. He just wants to do well. But I do rate him, yeah.
Yeah, well, against Palace as well, that Dan header, the first goal, that was Cox's man. And he went over his head. It's rare that he gets out-muscled in the air, but he did then. But what do you think, Oscar, about honestly, I think he's someone who's going to improve. I think he could be one of the best defenders in the league from what I can see. But how do you rate him as someone who analyses players?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think that 4-game run he went on, I think around Sheffield United, City, Wolves, Leicester, for me, I genuinely say he was man of the match in all 4 games for me. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And, he's made a couple of mistakes, but I think as Joe says, he can be a little bit sometimes, but for me, I'd rather that than someone who's soft to an extent. Hasn't got that aggression, that power, and I think obviously there's a lot of comparisons to Ben White. But I don't agree with it. I think Ben White, I don't, was playing in a far easier league. The thing is, Robin Koch playing against people like Gabriel Jesus, Firmino, Salah, Vardy, etc. He's playing against a world-class player directly in direct competition against a world-class player every single week, and that's it. And for me, I think he's done really well so far. I think value-wise, to get him for 13 million is an absolute steal.
Incredible.
I think.
What do you think, Ben?
I was just going to say, I think we talk about there's obviously going to be natural comparisons to Ben White, but Ben White really thrived on collecting the ball and running up the field. He really drove out from the back. Now, Koch doesn't seem to do that. He seemed to be a little bit more comfortable in spraying the ball with his long passing ability. Just one key kind of difference. But as Oscar really just alluded to there, 30 million's a steal. We've brought in Robin Koch, who's a an up and coming centre half, and Llorente, who's proven in the Spanish ranks for the price that Ben White was rumoured to cost. So, the business has been outstanding. We haven't seen Llorente yet, so let's not jump the gun. But we saw him pocket Cristiano Ronaldo in a friendly against Portugal. So, let's just see what he can bring to the table.
One thing I will say about Llorente is I don't know much about him, but I do know that the fans of his previous club were quite glad he'd gone. So that's not filling me with too much confidence. And if people think that this amazing defender is going to come in and solve all our defensive problems, I think they're wrong. But I think Koch's worth 3 or 4 on a corner as well. I think he's got 3 or 4 goals in this season. He's a threat in the air. And I'd much rather have, like Joe said, he's a bit overzealous, but the other side of that is when you watch Bamford do a pirouette in the fucking box and 4 players watch him. I'd rather have someone bang you than someone passive. Do you know what I mean? That's going to watch, and I quite like that aggressive. I mean, I like David Luiz as well. I like maverick defenders that take risks and do stupid things. But Koch isn't risky on the ball, to be fair. But I know what you mean. But he just goes for it, Joe, doesn't he? He wants that physical. He wants to win that physical battle, and you need that. With the Bielsa teams in of previous years, particularly the Chile team, he's always been criticised for having small centre backs, and his take on that was, do you know what? I want to play the football I want to play, and that's the sacrifice I have to make. I want ball playing centre backs. But I think Bielsa's learning now. I think he's getting better. He's saying, Joe, what? Let's have 2 fucking monsters in the air, Cooper and Koch. Let's have and then build the rest of the team around that defensively, because you need that aggression, you need that aerial threat. And I worried about corners a lot before the Premier League, campaign started, I thought we'd get bullied. And I'm starting to worry a little bit because I think we are, because you've got, like Oscar said, these are the best attacking, people attacking balls in the air in the world. And we need Koch in the team for that. Ben White was pretty passive when it comes to defending corners. When did you ever see Ben White monster a header away? I've been out again, but not regular. I think if we'd had Ben, I think we might have struggled. I think Koch's been the perfect remedy really for replacing Ben White. He's aggressive in the air, and I think he's 23. I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to learn, and defenders do learn. And I'd rather have someone too aggressive than too passive.
Look, Ben White can't get in the England team, and you know how bad England centre-backs are at the minute. Brighton are, we've obviously, I know we're like 12th, 13th, but Brighton are way, way behind us at the minute. And that's the proof for me that we made the decision. And obviously the Ben White thing was always going to be difficult to make the signing, but we definitely made the right decision to get in Rodrigo, Koch, Llorente for pretty much, maybe a little bit more price-wise than what we would have ended up paying for Ben White. For me, we made completely the right decision because I think, as you say, Mickey, obviously, I'm not going to lie, I would say, when Ben White, the way he was last season, I think everyone would have said, wow, I mean, he's going right to the top. But now you look at it and you think, in the Championship, you've seen so many defenders do what Ben White's done and then not make it into the Premier League. And for me, I'm looking at it now and thinking, maybe sometimes circumstance can work in your favour. And for me, we're starting to see a little bit of that for me so far this season. But I think just to finish off, guys, I think eager to get on to the 1 to 5s. We've had it quite a lot. And last week we had our first ever, I believe we're right in saying, Joe, our first ever Pablo omission.
Was that Gaz?
Yes, it was Gaz.
Yeah.
Gaz decided not to select Pablo. But interestingly, I'm just going to go to you first, Mickey. You've made the same decision. You've not selected Pablo.
Well,
but for me,
you've said the best players I've ever seen at Leeds. Fucking hell, man! I'll tell you now. Like the one thing I'll say about this Bielsa system we've got is that actually it's the system, and I don't trust the players that as much as I did. Like you can look at that team now and you can say early 90s, late 90s. That's what it is, because these are the best players. These are world class. Nigel Martin, looking at Nigel Martin, people can pick Robbo, I can understand that. Nigel Martin was the best keeper in England for about 3 or 4 years. And Seaman was an aging England keeper that should have been replaced, essentially. Particularly in 2002, remember that Ronaldinho free kick that went straight over his head because his feet had gone, he was too old. Nigel Martin was the best keeper in England for 3, 4, 5 years. When you've got England's number one in the sticks, it's incredible. What a feeling that is. To have a goal, a player that takes shots at the edge of the area, and you just knew that it wasn't going to go in. It had to be stanchion. It had to be incredible to go in. Such a reliable goal. Everything. He had the complete goalkeeper. So to have that was such an amazing feeling to have that at the back. I've chosen Woody because, I mean, the players in this, honestly, the players were so good. They were world class. Imagine this. Well, I'll just say, because he's got Ben and Oscar a bit. I know Joe's old enough to remember Woody, but imagine this, right? And a kid from Middlesbrough for a start, right? That's not good. A kid from Middlesbrough who plays for Leeds United comes to the academy, and Real Madrid are desperate to sign him. I mean, how good do you have to be? How good do you? And that's how good he was. One of the best defenders I've ever seen. Could have picked Rio actually as well, Rio Ferdinand.
Do you think, Mickey, that
was amazing for us
at that time was maybe a little bit? Obviously, you had the Chief, you had Rio. Obviously, at that 2002 World Cup, obviously, just absolutely unbelievable. Being honest, he was absolutely unbelievable. Do you think maybe Johnny Woodgate just didn't get the appreciation he deserved, and that's the same case with Decor, Bowyer, Viduka? In fact, the whole five, they all probably should have had a bit more respect than what they actually got at the time.
I think, I don't know. I think they were respected. I just think that they didn't go on and do anything else. The Leeds United team was the peak of their career, actually. We had a team of players. I've talked about that before tonight. You want to get players at the peak. They all peaked here at us. Woody was incredible. Like I say, when Real Madrid knock on your door and paying big money, because they were the Galacticos, you know, they signed the best players in the world. That's it. Woody was that good, but when he went there, injuries hurt Woodgate in his career big time. If he wasn't made of glass, he could have gone on and done a Rio Ferdinand and won various titles under various whoever he wanted to play for. Because when he was fit and he was young and he was aggressive, he was on the ball as well. I mean, he was a different class. He was world class. There's no That's why he's in my five-a-side team. He was genuine world class. Olivier Decor in midfield is probably my favourite Leeds United player, actually. He's one of them types of players that he was a French lad, and he just oozed class. The ball went to him. And I say to mates that every time it goes to Decor, something good happens. You could rely on it every time. He never lost the ball, ever. He never lost the ball. And he was another one you watch, and he just oozed class. You know, when a player went near him, you felt like he was going to get the toe in. He just never lost the ball, and it was such a wonder to watch. A bit understated because he wasn't as attacking minded as other players, but what he did for Leeds, and that is a big reason why we went to the Champions League semi-final, why we finished second in the Premier League, while we were challenging for everything at one time, because we had absolute quality in midfield, and he was part of that. Lee Boyer, for about 2 years, someone put this on Twitter the other day. I would argue, I don't know if Joe remembers it, I would argue one of the best midfielders in the world for about 2 seasons. Box to box, you've never seen anything like it. He's a perfect Bielsa player. He had so much energy. He fucking smoked as well. I mean, honestly, so aggressive and so classy as well in terms of what he saw on the pitch and how he finished. And he had a picture of what he could see what was going on. And he was, like I say, aggressive, and he had quality. You know, what more do you want? Viduka, I struggled with a striker, actually. There was quite a few. I thought about Yeboah. I was lucky enough to be at the Liverpool game, actually, that 1-0. I wasn't going to Leeds much then. You know, I was going to about 3 or 4 games a season. And to see that strike, I was very lucky. But I went with Viduka in the end because, again, the ball always stuck with him, and he finished. He had that knack for goal, and he could. In fact, he was a complete striker. I'll just say it. There you go. We were so blessed to have that team in the early noughties, and that's why those 5 players are in there, because they're all at that time. You are talking, and when I say world class, I mean the best 3 or 4 players in that position. That's how I view world class. The best, you know, you're talking the best 50 players in the world. The best 3 or 4 players in that position, they're all in that team right now, in that early noughties team. What a team. But if I played against them, I'd be fucking better than they are. Magic Kerr, they called me. Fucking brilliant on a 5-a-side pitch.
You'd motivate them, mate. I know that much. Dressing room speech.
One bottle of wine? Honestly, mate, what happened at half time? Man's had a bottle of wine. Fucking went for us.
Valencia 2001. I just wish you were in that dressing room and you said, David O'Leary, just move over, mate. Move over.
Dave, put your book down and fuck off. This is what's happening.
Put your book down, or I'm off round to your mum.
That's it. You pass it to him and you score. Partridge style, mate. But yeah, honestly, no, for those that are listening and watching now that are of a younger generation, you missed out on that. That early noughties team was bloody special, and I'm not exaggerating. In any shape or form, 5 world-class players right there at the peak when they were at Leeds. Because, of course, they're world-class. We were championship. We were challenging for the title, and we were in the latter stage of the Champions League. You know, incredible.
Well, just to go on to Ben's team. I mean, Ben's team is you have got 1 player from that. Well, 2 players, sorry, from that era. Yeah. Obviously, Robbo, Mark Viduka, but it's an interesting one. I mean, talk us through it, Ben. Obviously, the one that's really caught me and Joe's eyes, debating whether we can include it, whether you can have a third midfielder in there, whether that's going bending the rules a bit. But we let you off. But
I'm not having that. You can't have to lift it back. I looked at rules. I follow rules, me, Ben. You're maverick.
Rules are there to be broken, Mickey. That's what it is. No, I mean, it'd pain me to leave Phillips out. It really, really would. He is what Leeds United's all about for me. Growing up in Leeds, and he's worked hard under every manager. Every manager who's come in has chosen him, and really wanted to work with him. And I think it just speaks volumes. And he's been given his shot by Bielsa, and I just think he's thrived. And he is the main voice of that club at the moment. He's the poster boy, and he's really brought this city together. And I thought about it far too logically. I won't lie. I've got far too much time on my hands. I wanted Calvin there at back to just break up play and spray balls over to Click or Hernandez. That's what it is. I mean, Robinson, I watching Leeds growing up, Paul Robinson was the goalkeeper, and I actually met him at a football presentation as a kid, playing for Glen Juniors. I went to my local working men's club for pick up my trophy for taking part, one of them. And Paul Robinson was sat there signing beer mats, and I'm pretty sure I've still got it in my bedroom. So that were kind of a sentimental pick. And then Click and Hernandez. I mean, Hernandez is the kind of 21st century hero for Leeds United. That goal against Swansea kind of epitomised that season for me. It was nail biting, and the fashion that we did it, and the uproar, and the just that feeling when it went into the back of the net. It was, it really sparked a reaction within the city, and he's been doing it consistently for 4 or 5 years at Leeds. He's been that little bit of magic and that little bit of hope when it was getting a little bit shit for us. When we had Paul Heckingbottom in charge and so on and so forth, it was still that little bit of hope that we had. That little bit of magic. Mateus Click technically is outstanding. He's a complete shithouse, and I love it. He likes winding people up, and he's one of the coolest guys ever. He's well into his music and his trainers and his street art. He's an all-round kind of cool bloke. And then, top it off with the creme de la creme of Mark Viduka, who scored the first Leeds United goal I saw live against Arsenal. Albeit we got beat 4-1, but again, it was a fond memory for me, and it was an outstanding strike. He scored just short of 100 Premier League goals for across a few teams. I think it was 96 he scored. And very much underrated. He was an all-round striker, very clinical, and that's my team. I think that England cap as well for Phillips kind of cemented his spot in the team, because that was a proud moment for me as well, just to see that.
Well, it was for a younger generation of Leeds fans like yourself, mate. I mean, it's something we haven't seen before. I mean, obviously since Alan Smith, 2004, I think it was the first time before that. But an interesting team there, guys. Two very different kind of teams. I think Mickey's gone for an all-stars team. I mean, that is just that team. I mean, unreal. And then Ben's. I mean, it's just like in terms of the modern era. I mean, Click and Anders in the same midfield. Well, absolutely unreal as well.
It's a nice team that crosses the generations, because I'm like, I'm 39, mate. I'm 16. Is that right? Yeah, 16 years older. So, but that's two different generations of Leeds players, isn't it? And you've got, unfair play to you, because that's the best you've seen. I agree with your team. It's the best you've seen.
Is my mum safe then, Mickey? Is that what you're saying?
she's not safe when I'm around, mate.
But do you know what? We run a poll after on Twitter when we put the teams out. So it'd be interesting to see just who wins that one, because I know.
Well, I'll win it. I'll tell you now, I'll win it. Absolutely not.
Josh Hobbs last week got absolutely spanked. He had Michael Bridges up top, and it just didn't go down well. Not that Michael Bridges
had a good season for us. I think he's got about 22 one season. But he's another injury-struck player. But the players I've picked there, they did it over 2 or 3 seasons at, a Leeds United that was pretty special, and even more special now looking back after 16, 17 years of fucking shite. So, but they were all internationals. They were all brilliant. I think someone put down there that Boyle was overlooked for England. He was, but he was a maverick, wasn't he? He's always scrapping with his own bloody team half the time. He's a bit of a naughty boy.
Right. Right. We need to close this. Just to put it into perspective, we normally finish on an hour. We're now on an hour and 40 minutes, Mickey.
Is that my fault again?
So I'm just going to remind everyone that this video is sponsored by Football Prizes. I've just had a look. There's about 45 tickets left now for the Patrick Bamford signed and framed Leeds United shirt. It's £4.95 a go. It closes on Friday the 20th. Get yourself in there. have a go at that, and you can stick it on your wall. It'll look decent. And Paddy Bamford's going to
I
be
can
playing.
see that in the shed, actually. I can see that in the shed.
Exactly. £4.95, mate. You might as well have a go.
Yeah, why not? Because if I win, I'll be putting it on for £5.95 and doing my own little fucking competition. If that's how it goes, why not?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it. Right. Ben, where can we find you, buddy?
At my house.
Where's your mum as well? Tell us that, because I need to know.
Right.
No, on Twitter, at Ben's _. I actually don't know my Twitter handle, if I'm honest, mate. Talking Shut, at Talking Shut. Go there, because that's all that matters, not me.
You're back at normal time this week.
Ask Gaz.
Wow. Okay. Mickey, where can we find you, mate? Make it as short an answer as possible.
Just go to Mickey Peaker or Bielsa Bible, and I'll be knocking about there.
Yeah, make sure you check out Bielsa Bible. Actually, it's a great listen. I put the links to both in the YouTube comments as well, so make sure you check them out. And thank you both for coming on. Absolute legends. It was a howl tonight. Yeah, very funny. But thanks for coming on, guys, and we'll see you in a bit, everyone. Peace out.